Welcome to Transformation with Martinet. Martinet Emmons is a transformational life coach who broke free from childhood abuse, sexual trauma, and overcame cancer to become a powerful force of healing and hope for others. Martinet describes traumatic events as fierce emotional tsunamis. They can leave impending doom and destructive tidal waves of emotions that hit you when you least expect it. Martinet helps her clients dive into the depths of their trauma and pain as she stands fiercely advocating for them to shine a light on those experiences and find the lesson in the pain. She serves as a beacon of hope that guides you to see the strength, lessons, and purpose that can be born from the pain. You can feel alive with purpose again when you awaken your dormant strength, step into your power with a sense of peace, and discover a new wave of hope with the right tools and support. Martinet and her guests are here shining their lights today through empowering stories of hardship and transformation to inspire you to find hope and to see that there is a beautiful blue ocean of serenity, happiness, and fulfillment in your future. Transformation with Martinet starts now.
Welcome to Transformation with Martinet. That's me. And this is where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. For those of you that are new, my show is every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And my show is about hope. Every guest that I invite on here with me believes, as I do, that we as humans, we are resilient and there is nothing we can't get back up from. My guests and I are proof of this. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my guest, Sampa Manigat, and will you please introduce your beautiful self?
Oh, hello, Martinet. Hello, everyone. I'm Sampa Manigat. I am a transformational life coach and a dentist. And I am so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
And this is a conversation I feel is so needed at this time. So thank you so much.
No, absolutely. And I 100% agree with you. Our topic today is about grief, and good grief is basically the title of our show. And both Sampa and I are very familiar with grief. We've both been through on a big journey. So Sampa, why don't you start out by telling us your journey and the start, and especially being a dentist to transformational coach. Let's get started on your journey.
So my journey with what I call good grief now starts with something that everybody probably has experienced on one level or another, whether it's grief from loss of a person that you love or grief from loss of something that is dear to you or whatever. So grief is a natural response that we have to loss. And my transformational shift happened when I came to the realization that grief requires surrender. That was huge for me. And it didn't come overnight either. It took me years at that point. And after the surrender, it's followed up with gratitude and love, and that's good grief. And it's a good. So I stopped fighting the grief. I embraced it. And that's when I really felt the shift. But I have to give you a backstory to this. My mom was a personal development geek and probably the one that planted the seeds in me.
Yeah.
And in 2015, when she passed away, the wave that hit me was like a tsunami. I've never experienced anything like this in my life. And there I was, and this grief had such a vice grip on me. And for 2 years, I was just stuck. So there I was, shipwrecked with all my emotions and everything, and wave after wave, it would come in and crash, come in and crash, and there I am. I'm drowning, arms aflame. was just awful. And at some point, I just surrendered and I stopped fighting. And instead of moving away from the grief, I started to move towards it. As I moved
Mhm.
towards it, I found myself moving through it. And so when people say, move on or you'll get over it, you don't move on, you move through it.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like swimming through mud. And this is
Yeah.
exactly how it felt for me. But what I found on the other side was worth it. That was the breakthrough. So it started from really my mother passing away.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's interesting too that you say that the tsunami of grief. Um, I don't I'm not sure I mentioned to you or not, but like when we play my intro, I have them play this the last little bit for me because it makes me cry almost every time. And part of my intro is the tsunami of grief because that's exactly how it feels. It's just a tsunami, like you just paddling and you're trying to find a way, and there are times where, at least I know me, I just kind of want to stop paddling. It's like I'm just
That's gracious. I mean, I hear you shipwreck.
yeah,
I'm like, I need an
yeah,
anchor. I need
yeah.
something that's gonna stop this. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I would also say to anyone who's experienced this, like we've had this conversation before,
Mm-hmm.
if you
Mm-hmm.
can find an anchor, something you can place in your mind, in your being, just to make you reframe what you're going through right now,
Mm-hmm.
so key. So
Yeah.
once I found an anchor, and it was basically the gratitude and love, then I
Mm-hmm.
realized grief is really love unfinished. You've got to have loved deeply, deeply to grieve.
Grief is love unfinished. There's no doubt about it. um I don't know if you want to explain your exact anchor, but I can tell you what mine is. Both my brother and sister are gone. My sister died in 2015, my mom in 2014, and my brother 2018. And all of them were really, like, my sister was a um boy, she was a force. I mean, just an absolute force. But my mom and my brother a little bit more mellow, a little more peaceful or whatever, but all three of them really wanted to serve. My mom was just an absolute loving presence. She helped people everywhere she went. My sister, you really had to get to know her, and for her to let you in to be able to see that side of her. But I remember one of our friends, she stayed up with her all night in the car because she really wanted to end her life. And my sister was like there. And towards the end of her death, what she really wanted to do was she had just become a chef. And she wanted to make food for people in hospice or people caring for people in hospice. And my brother loves search and rescue. So they are my anchor. I bring them with me in transformation when I work with my clients, when I talk about grief and go to gratitude, or it's like they're with me. Their love is with me. What was your anchor? I know you said gratitude, but like, is there a specific thing or?
When I think of my anchor, and we have so many similarities, for me,
Mm-hmm.
after my mother passing, it was my niece who was basically like my daughter. And
Mm-hmm.
pandemic hits, it's my
Mm-hmm.
father, the beginning of the year, my mother-in-law, and then my father-in-law. So my anchor has really been water. And when I think about water, I
Mm-hmm.
look at the waves and the ebb and flow, and I always look at it and say to myself, these waves will surely lead you to the shore. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what happened when I felt like that shipwrecked person. And once I got that anchor, I was like, wow, I'm going to move with these waves now.
Mm-hmm.
Ebb and
Mm-hmm.
flow,
Mm-hmm.
some love in there. I feel some gratitude. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to embrace it.
Yeah.
So that's that's it for me. And similar to you, I hear service. So when
Mhm.
you had family that come from a place of service, when we
Yeah.
do this work, that's what we're here to do.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
100%. So what you, as we've talked about in your dentistry practice, you often were coaching people anyway. So what made you switch over or just like let dentistry go and just want to go into coaching?
Comes back to my mom and dad. So they
Mm-hmm.
visited me in Canada in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have all these books around. I'm in the coaching community. I'm taking
Mm-hmm.
all these programs. And I keep saying to my mom, I can't do the two. I don't know how to balance the dentistry and coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And just before she left, she said to me, you know what? You need to follow your passion.
Mm-hmm.
So, dentistry is skill I learned, I was good at. And the part about dentistry that I miss is really my dental family and that human connection. That's
Right.
the
Mm-hmm.
thing for me. But walking away from it wasn't so hard. It's almost like she gave me the go ahead, thumbs up, do what you have to
Mm-hmm.
know. And it made me realize it's never too late to make a change. It's never
Right.
too late to have that sort of transformation and follow whatever your heart desires. And that
Mm-hmm.
was in my heart. And
Right.
so I said, you know what? It's going to be a door that's going to open all windows and of opportunity. And it did.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said to myself, you've got to start learning though, because I'm a consummate student. And it
Mm-hmm.
was just like, you've got to start learning. You can't be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is what I want to do. So start from scratch. And so, yeah, that's where it started. So leaving the practice wasn't a difficult decision at,
Mm-hmm.
at all. It was just grieving the loss of my dental family. Again, here we are, back at
Mm-hmm.
losing this connection you've had for such a long time. Losing the routine. I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning like I
Mm-hmm.
work. It just took a while to get myself back in balance. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I know that happens. That's like another form of grief. I remember when my husband, when we were first married, he was at this job for a while. It was good company, but he couldn't go where he wanted to go, and he ended up leaving. But he had such a hard time with that because there's familiarity, there's friends, there's routine, there's all these different things that you were trained to do. So it's a hard process, even though you know it's right, you
You're
know?
absolutely spot on because you're
Hmm.
going to grieve the loss of so many things,
Yeah.
relationships, jobs,
Hmm.
connection.
Hmm.
It could go on and on. So,
Yeah.
yeah, grief is big.
Yeah. I get that in a lot of ways too. We're going to take a break in a second, but um, I remember even like when I got remarried and we made the decision to move to Michigan here where we are now. It's almost 10 years ago from California. It was also like oh my gosh, 2,500 miles away, whole new surroundings. Oh my goodness. And then even just recently, because I've been in that town for so many years and moving just an hour away, there's almost a grief there too. You get used to your little town, you get used to your home, you get used to a certain way. Change isn't easy, even though, boy, we want this,
Yeah,
you
change isn't
know?
easy. And that's the thing
Hmm.
is surrender and release. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's perfect. And actually, yeah, I want to go into that a little bit more. Ebb and flow, water.
flow.
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to be right back, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you in a few. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martinet, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Sampa Manigat, and we've been talking about good grief. And that may sound kind of funny to a lot of you, but there is a lot of beauty in grief because it brings you to gratitude of what you have. the lessons that you learn from it. And when we took a break, we were talking about the ebb and flow of grief and changes that come. And I know for myself that well, when we left on break, that moving from California here was a humongous change, and there was a lot of grief of friends leaving some family, and then even just recently moving, and it's only an hour away, but it's still kind of sad. I'm quite kind of far from people, especially working all day. So Sampa, the changes, and you were talking about the ebb and flow and the water. I remember doing an exercise actually with Sean long time ago. This was in like 2017, and we were at the ocean, and we all had kind of a ball of what we wanted to get rid of. I mean, our own imaginary, but we all we just spent time at the water thinking about it, and are we ready to let it go, and then just released it into the water.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
It
That's
was a beautiful experience. Is that how you see that? Kind of like when you surrendered, taking those feelings and
definitely. And sometimes that ball is so huge.
you're right.
Just to tag on what you're saying about the ball, if you
Mm-hmm,
imagine grief to be that ball, for example, in a jar,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
that ball might stay the same size.
mm-hmm,
Imagine your jar, which is your expansion, as you are moving through the grief and you're
mm-hmm,
expanding. And one thing Sean teaches us in our
mm-hmm,
community is buried emotions never die. So you have to acknowledge these emotions and not suppress them. So now
mm-hmm,
you have this ball in the jar and you're expanding because you have to give yourself room and space so you
mm-hmm.
through this. So you
Yes.
might go through stages, whether it's the denial, then the anger, then
Mm-hmm,
the bargaining, and then the depression, and then the acceptance. And these stages
mm-hmm.
happen, there's no order. Like
Right.
sometimes you think you've got it and you're okay, and you walk out and something will trigger you. Like
Mm-hmm,
your husband might see a poster or a banner with
mm-hmm.
his old workplace and it just triggers
Yeah.
loss again, and you might drive to your old neighborhood and then it hits you again.
Mm-hmm,
If you just think
mm-hmm.
of that ball in the jar, you're expanding, you're trying to create space for you to move
Yeah.
this grief, and you're growing through the process.
Mm-hmm,
Growing through the process. And do cry.
mm-hmm.
Crying, I mean, those tears, they come from such a deep energetic place, and tears and releasing tears is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Just get it out of your body. Just
Mm-hmm.
really get it out of your body. And I've got to tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
A couple of maybe about a month after my mom passed, my husband said, "So, what's the plan for you today? What are you doing today?" I said, "Today's my cry day." Your cry day? I said, "Yeah, today's my cry day."
I could see a man acting just like you.
It's like, okay, she's going through some stuff now. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just said, "It's all day. I don't know when it's going to end, but you're going to hear me. There might be some angry cries there. There might be some whimpering. There might be some loud
Mm-hmm.
sounds. Just be warned and know
Yeah.
that I'll be okay."
Mm-hmm.
I just let it rip the whole day.
Yep.
And it just came out of my body. And that's the
Yeah.
thing with grief. We embody it. So it's in
Mm-hmm.
your cells, it's in
Yes.
every part of your body. So when I
Right.
allowed myself the cry day and I
Mm.
just let it spill, the whole well just came out. I was totally
Yeah.
surprised with what came out. I heard
Mm-hmm.
sounds and cries and wails that I'd never even heard before.
Yes. Yes.
And the relief afterwards was because it was so projectile at points. You know, when you've had a
Mm-hmm.
meal and you
Yeah.
know, gee, I just want this out. It just
Right.
needed to come out. And once it was out and I released it, I sat in that silence and it was so peaceful.
Right.
And now I was just thinking about all the positive things and thinking about it from a place of love and gratitude.
Right.
Yeah. So have a wail, have a cry, and release it.
And that's so important to say, because at least for me, tears and stuff is embarrassing. There were times where I think it got shut down in the beginning, because my dad would, well, he hurt me and he would tell me, don't cry, don't cry, so that. And then it seems like there were like points in my life. For example, my second daughter's kindergarten graduation, they had a song. I don't know if you remember the one, what is it? I Hope You Dance. Like, I
Mm,
hope. Oh my God. And I remember just being there and this song was playing, and oh, no, 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 please, no, please, please, not in front of everybody. And then there were times where it'd come out when you don't want it to. And then it seemed like there were several years after my divorce that I couldn't cry. I could not. And I remember actually telling Sean, Michelle, and people in our community, like, being at events and thinking, I wish I could release that like you guys. I wish I could come to emotion like you guys. And of course, when you really want something, it doesn't happen, right? And the last year when I left my son, he lives in California. Reality is a divorce. He lives with his dad. He's 16. And when I left him last time, I don't know what happened inside, but bam, it's like I got on the plane, cried the whole way home, 5-hour plane ride. My husband picks me up. He's like, well, you want to grab something to eat? Sitting in a restaurant, crying the whole time. And it seemed like it was like a whole week where that just kind of broke me.
yeah.
But I'm like, okay, I'm back. I'm finally back. And now everything, like my intro to my commercial, can start me.
God, I love that because that's also part of the gratitude and grief.
Mm-hmm.
You have to thank it. You have to thank it for
Yes, you
what it's
do.
teaching you. You
Mm-hmm.
for what it's breaking you. So grief broke me and will continue
Yeah.
to break me. I thank it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thank it for whatever lesson it has to teach me and release it. So that
Yeah.
is so beautiful. So you had a good whale, huh?
Oh gosh. And of course, not in the privacy of my home.
Those are the best. If you're gonna do it,
Oh,
just do it. No judgment. And, if you are afraid, find someone you feel safe with.
exactly.
Just say, would you just be willing to give me an hour of your time?
Mm-hmm.
And just whatever happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that reminds me of something else, because I know, or first off, I should say that if you don't let it happen, if you don't give yourself that space, it's going to happen when you really don't want it to, like it did for me at the airport. Um, I remember I knew my marriage was over. My first marriage was over, and I knew it. And I had gone for a walk in the morning, and there was a friend of mine that I always knew she was up early, and I just called her and I'm like, so Leona, will you come outside? Yeah, yeah, you're okay. Yeah, she was okay. I'm just getting out of the shower. Let me get dressed. I'll be outside. And I just remember telling her, I am truly on my own. I don't know how I'm going to raise my 3 kids by myself. Lost it. She was so good. She was just there for me. And I will never, ever forget her for that. Just find a trusted friend when you know that it's not going to judge you or whatever. They're just going to let you be.
Yeah, they're gonna let you
Yeah.
be. And that's the thing, when someone is grieving and whatever loss it may be, some
Mm-hmm.
people don't want to be held. So, you
Yeah, right.
having a moment, like had I met you at the airport and I see you,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna ask you, are you okay?
Yeah,
And then I want to know what you need from me.
yeah.
But grabbing you and trying to shush you and quiet down, this is not the place. It's about me. That's all
Yeah.
about me. I'm
Yes.
comfortable with what you are going through right now. It's making me uncomfortable. So it's really not about Martinet. It's
Mm-hmm.
about me. And that's the thing with grieving. Like sometimes people just call you and they just want you to listen. So maybe ask them, what do you want me to be? Do you want me to be a friend who just listens? Do
Yeah.
you want me to give you advice? Ask them for specifics
Mhm.
if you want to extend that hand to them.
Right. No, I agree with you too. It's not about us. If we're trying to calm somebody down or stop them, it's because we're uncomfortable.
Right.
I remember also being at an event where this woman, she was just crying, and I just kind of kept rubbing her arm. And I remember being told, leave her alone.
Mm,
Let her. And I'm like, oh God, I was just trying to be, yes, but
mm.
yeah, okay, I am uncomfortable. Okay, I'm just trying to help her, you know? So yeah, what you say makes absolute sense. So, there's been so much grief going on with COVID, so much loss. I know that you've experienced loss with that. I wasn't sure my dad was going to make it through. He did. Um, there's a lot going on with COVID as well, and grief. So we're going to take a break again. And before we do, Sampa, will you please tell everybody where they can find you?
Okay, so you can find me at www.coachsampa.com. And
Mhm.
if you want to email me, you can email me at info@coachsampa.com.
And you have Facebook and Instagram, I think. Maybe I know you do Facebook.
I have Facebook, but my website is really the best way to get
Okay.
to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So we'll be right back, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martinet, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. My guest, Sampa Manigat, and I have been talking about grief today. And we left off mentioning COVID, and there has been, my God, so much grief regarding COVID, not only just for the losses, but just for the changes in work situations and just living family dynamics, so many things going on. And as I was telling Sampa over the break, we were talking about how our lives have changed. For me, one of the things is being home. Even though I worked from home, um, I didn't find myself going out as much, and I kind of got scared of driving. It was kind of a strange thing, and I know from some people that I've worked with client wise, they've become afraid as well. So there's a lot of fear in different areas that we would not have expected. What do you think, Sampa?
Oh, you're really spot on. I was on full lockdown
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
we're coming out of it slowly, but fear has really been something that everybody can say they've experienced with the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
It is still very disruptive. And, with the lockdown, personally, I felt because I was within my space
Mm-hmm.
single day, I felt that I was in lockdown within a lockdown.
Right.
So, in coaching, we talk a lot about reframing and experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, you want to reframe it so it has more of a positive narrative to it. And
Mm-hmm.
about framing is it's really not about the facts. Framing is really about how you describe the facts, or what story you tell yourself about the facts, or what you make those facts mean. So
Right.
yeah, with the clients and with me personally and everybody who's experiencing what we're going through right now is, just trying to reframe it in this moment is not always easy, but it's really small little things that make a difference. So if you can, like for us, for example, we had a curfew at some point from 9 p.m. till 5 a.m. So you would take
Mm-hmm.
for the curfew and
Mm-hmm.
distance while walking, just be out in nature, whatever it is. Checking
Right.
in on your neighbors just from the windows, because obviously you can't go across anymore. So it's just
Right.
little things. But fear is is a big deal. And with fear is real. So if I were to discuss fear with a client, I start with saying, listen, first of all, just you've got to face it.
Mm-hmm.
Face it. What is it you're actually afraid of? And then name it. And then the E is embrace it. I'm back to embrace again because
Right, right.
about embracing things is big for me. And
Mm-hmm.
A, ask it the question, what are you trying to teach me?
Mm-hmm.
Why are
That's
you
so
waking
good. Mm-hmm.
up in the middle of the night?
Yeah.
And then the reality, like you mentioned, driving, what are you really afraid of?
Right.
You know? So then the R, I would say, is just release. And then
Mm-hmm.
release it, then you can just reset and then try something new. Just renew it.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a work in progress, Martine, and we're
Oh, it is.
working together with the pandemic. And I've had, I can't even count the losses. Um,
Mm.
as you know, my first
Right.
virtual funeral was my father's.
Yes.
And after 20, I stopped counting. You've had some losses yourself, so yeah.
Many, many. Yep. One very recent, that just completely caught me out of the blue as well. And, Canada, where you are, there's more fear there, at least from what I know. I remember doing, God, was it, time flies sometimes, but I had done a retreat or assisted a colleague through with a retreat. And it was really before we got shut down completely. We decided, let's just do this real quick. We know it's coming. And we decided to do it. And one of our guests, because she's from Canada, she was so fear filled. She's like, what if I get it and I can't get care?
Mm,
That was so scary to her. She showed up virtually as best as she could.
yes.
We tried to bring her in to the retreat, but I just remember her being just so afraid.
Yeah, and that's the reality of it. And with care, the
Mhm.
healthcare providers have really taken the brunt.
Mhm.
Nurses and doctors and supporting staff are exhausted. They're
Mhm.
exhausted. And, where do they turn to? They feel the system's failing them. And that's
Mhm.
another thing about the pandemic, what it's brought up, the intangible things you grieve. You grieve loss
Mhm.
of security, you grieve loss of
Yeah.
stability,
Mhm.
loss of safety. People are grieving loss of faith. I mean, it
Yes.
goes on and on. So there are other things that you can be grieving, and
Mhm.
you will feel the same way with losses like that. So it's it's been such a big, big lesson for
It
all of us.
has. It has. That brings me to the thought grief is kind of well, it's a grief and trauma. Both of them are different for everybody. A lot of times people will say trauma is um abuse. It's so many different things. Trauma can also be, according to one of my colleagues, she said when her sons went off to college, that was trauma to her. She didn't
Yeah.
even know how to act or be. And
Yes.
grief was, of course, tied to that as well. So,
Cindy.
yeah,
Yes, it's real.
it's real. And we all have to be patient, kind, loving with each other because your idea of trauma may not be as mine, or your idea of grief may not be as mine. And whether something takes you longer to get over it than I do, that's all okay. And we're not, like you said, we're not really going to get over it. We're just going to go through it.
Yeah. I mean, pet loss is another big one.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I have had a funeral or two for a pet that's been lost.
Mm-hmm.
I just appreciate my parents for just honoring me because,
Mm-hmm.
I could bring the drama. And
Right.
so pet loss is real. And when you watch a child, Martine, that
Mm-hmm.
grieves the loss of a pet or someone
Yeah.
or some,
Yeah.
that is the perfect example of what surrender and release and gratitude
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
will always choose love. Will
Yes.
always choose love. And love just grows more love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they are completely authentic and vulnerable. They don't think who's watching me, or how do I look, or ugly cry, or whatever it is. I mean, nobody even, they don't think anything of that,
You don't think,
which is so beautiful.
yeah. I mean, your 6-year-old is going to run onto the playground and
Yeah.
just play. They don't care what the person looks like,
Yep.
short,
Exactly.
tall, a girl or a boy. They just want
Hmm. Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And we had talked a little bit too in the beginning, well, on break, but before we started the show, actually, was, we Lisa Nichols says this, and probably some others do too, but I think I heard it from her first, anyways. We grow through what we go through.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's really so, so profound because the grace in grief is also changing whatever your inner soundtrack is.
Mm-hmm.
You grow through what you go through. So when you are, for example, I mean, in our line of work, we talk a lot about, neurotransformation and the
Uh-huh.
self-talk. And
Yes.
so your self-talk and the subconscious mind, what is it saying to you?
Yeah.
So changing your inner soundtrack, and you can change it at any point because you want to tell your subconscious mind that I'm going to tell you this and I will keep repeating it and I'll keep doing it because this is important to me. And that is where true transformation comes because you have to have awareness. If you don't have that awareness, you're not even going to have the shift.
Right. Right. One of my clients, Wednesday night, she had lost her dog, and she was like, people, like, she had told some people she wanted to take the day off, and they were just kind of like, and she goes, I don't know what's wrong with me. She goes, it's just a freaking dog. And I'm like, no, no. And if someone feels that way, that's on them. It's not that at all. My little dog is 14 and she's snoring outside the door here. I know it's coming, and I've never experienced this. And I was telling her that it's going to be a really hard thing because we've had her since my kids were little. My God, my son, when we got, oh gosh, well, my daughter, my oldest, was 10. So, or no, well, whatever. Not even going to try to do the math at the moment, but that's going to be a really hard thing. And gosh, it doesn't matter how you take it or they take it or whatever it is. It's honoring what we feel inside, and it's okay. I remember, yeah, I remember, actually, I was telling her this too, that my ex-husband's mom, when she lost her husband, my ex-husband's father, of course, um, she was obviously very sad about it, but she had a harder time when her cat died. That cat was by her side all the time and loved her no matter what.
Yeah.
She actually had a harder time with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And that's the thing with grief. It's so individual. Not
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
person will grieve or mourn the loss of something the same way another person does, and even
Yeah.
at what level and for what event or experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just
Yeah.
not having any judgment, giving people the space to have the grace and ease to just grieve in whatever way they need to in order to move through this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we are going to take a break again, and well, come back and talk about more transformation. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martinet, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. And my guest today, Sampa Manigat, and we've been talking about good grief. And, Sampa, I was thinking about, just having, it could be anywhere. It could be a coffee shop. It could be at the gym. It could be anywhere that you might frequent. And you have a warm, friendly appearance. Anyway, you just call people to you. It's just how you emanate love. If someone were to come up to you and just say that they've suffered a great loss and they don't know how to get out of the tsunami of pain themselves, what would you tell them?
The first thing I would tell them, and I do, is I always ask for permission first. I'm
Mm-hmm.
willing to let me, or are you willing to have me help support?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
And once I get that permission, then
Right.
that's when I can get into. Um, I want to ask like what the real issue is, and not just like have them. I don't want to take them into that deep place where I can't get them out, especially if
Right.
something else,
Exactly.
it's, you know, tell me about what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to also find out like what all this emotion or the feelings or the loss, like what is it costing them right now? What's
Mm-hmm.
happening?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's important. And then once we get through that, then always if I'm in a public place or whatever, I will ask if they would like to continue this conversation. And if that's the case,
Mm-hmm.
just take it from there. But acknowledging the pain in someone else's pain,
Mm-hmm.
that human connection, we have to have that. That's important.
I
Yeah.
think that's a lot. I mean, just right there, you saying that, because a lot of times when we're going through something, we're not so much looking for advice as we are just being heard.
Mhm. That's it.
I know I've really, even with my kids, sometimes it's like I want to say more, and then it's like, just kind of, I hear you. That's hard. I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
And even sometimes, or maybe we understand, maybe we don't. um I have a young friend who went through a miscarriage recently, and I do know what that's like. But if I didn't, it's like, gosh, I can't imagine, just being there and listening and hearing them is
Just
everything.
present, really.
Yeah.
Be present for that
Hmm.
person. And
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean, this is something that's very endearing to me. I was on the train, so it's like 5:30 in the morning going down.
Hmm.
So this is probably 2 months after my um, niece had passed away. So I'm looking out the windows, the train's moving, and I did not realize that I was crying.
Hmm. I remember this story. Hmm.
Get to the stop, and this lady, I just felt someone touch me and do this. And this lovely
Yeah.
older lady
Hmm.
wiped away my tear and got off the train. So I'm
Hmm.
window, I'm looking on the platform trying to see where she went. And normally that train at that time, it's the same people in the same carriages. I'd never
Yeah.
seen this woman before, ever, and I never saw her again.
Hmm.
And that was also an anchor for me. It was so beautiful
Right.
that someone moved me and felt whatever I was feeling.
Yeah.
And yeah, so when you see someone or someone reaches out to you, just be present.
Hmm.
Just be present. And just acknowledge that pain in whatever way it is. If you have a workmate and you know they've been through something and you come back with a cup of coffee, that can just set the tone for them. So it's the little things sometimes. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture all the time.
Right. That reminds me of the Maya Angelou quote. People may remember what you say, but not what you do. Something like that. I know that's wrong, but they'll never forget you being there, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And yeah, there's another one too about like going through the darkness with someone, just standing there, just being there.
being
for
there.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Say less and be more.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just stand there, just being there and listening. So when we talk about loss and um, getting through it, and you may not be over it, but you let it move through you, would you say there's a renewed sense of hope?
There is. There is a renewed
Yeah.
hope. And even
Yeah.
now, I think globally, we're all taking a little breath.
Mm-hmm.
He's exhaling.
Yeah.
We held our breath for so long, and now you
Right.
feel it. You just look around you. In some countries, people are able to fly again. Of course, with
Mm-hmm.
you know COVID protocols being respected, etc. But
Yeah.
uh, things look different right now. Things feel
Mm-hmm.
different. Conversations feel different. And even people that have lost their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
There are many people that were sent home to work at home, and they're never going to go back into the office because they
Right.
found something that works for them.
Mm-hmm.
And the realization for the first time that, number one, I don't want that job anyway because I want something else for myself. So
Yeah.
people are have this renewal, this reset happening, this
Yeah.
rethink. So it almost is like we got rattled, and
Mm-hmm.
now the dust is settling, and the thought process is really, really different. Even the way clients talk now compared to last
Right.
year about the same fears, or sometimes, just what's going on. I just,
Mm-hmm.
it's just quite different.
Yeah.
So,
And yes, yes. And there's like not, it's taught that there's not so much patience, like, oh, well, I'll get there when I get there. It's more like, okay, it's time is now.
the
Like
time,
my life is happening now, which is a little scary, but at the same time, there's hope in that. Like, wow, I can have more than I thought I could have.
exactly. And I've
Yeah.
never before seen so many people, and this is all age groups, get into action. Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're right.
and we know that in life, even if you want clarity, you've got to get into action. If you want a
Yes.
transformation, you've got to get into action. So
Yes.
I've never seen it on this level ever.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful thing, a really beautiful thing. So this show has been awesome. I know you and me, we could talk for days, and weeks probably actually. Um, but where can everybody find you again before we go? And any parting remarks you want to say in the next minute?
So I can be found on my website, www.coachsampa.com, or you
Yes.
can email me at info@coachsampa.com.
Yes.
And my parting words really is trust the process.
Yeah.
Trust the process and just let those waves guide you to shore. Just trust.
Mm.
Yeah,
And they will guide you if you allow and surrender, like you said.
exactly.
Yeah. Ah, that's awesome. Thank you again so much for being here, Sampa.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I always love having any sort of exchange with you.
Oh, me too. 100%. Yeah.
Awesome.
No, you are. Thank you so very much. And thank you everyone for tuning in to my show. And I look forward to seeing you next week at 1 p.m. Um, Eastern and 10 a.m. Pacific every Friday. Thank you again so much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Transformation with Martinet. Did listening today spark a sense of hope and possibility? Hold on to this feeling and tune in every second and fourth Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific for more inspiring conversations with Martinet and her guests. They will show you there is hope, and you are right where you need to be. Martinet is dedicated to supporting you right where you are while launching you towards promise, passion, and possibility that leads to the fulfilled life your heart aches for. If you're tired of being stuck, schedule a complimentary consultation with Martinet and get on the exciting path towards the life you want to be living. Visit martinetemmons.com and make your appointment today.